Hello, everyone. My name is Clive Bates. I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me to attend your conference. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm providing this video presentation instead. Just so you know who I am, I used to be the Director of Action on Smoking and Health in the UK, and I then was a civil servant in the UK government and for the United Nations. And now I run my own consultancy. I have no conflicts of interest with respect to the tobacco, e-cigarette or pharmaceutical industry. I am committed to public health and I'm speaking on account of myself only. I'm going to be breaking my talk today down into 5 sections. First of all, a short introduction to the concept of tobacco harm reduction. Secondly, we're going to look at the relative safety of low-risk products like e-cigarettes compared to smoking. Thirdly, we'll look at claims about so-called gateway effects and renormalization of smoking. Fourthly, we'll look at the potential for bad policy decisions to make things worse through unintended consequences. And fifthly, we'll discuss some ideas for how best to regulate these products. So first, let's look at the idea of the concept of tobacco harm reduction. The idea is very simple. It comes from the fact that people smoke for nicotine, but they die from tar. It's the toxic chemicals and hot gases in tobacco smoke that cause most of the cancer, heart disease, and respiratory illnesses that cause people to get sick from smoking. So if you can remove the smoke, you can deliver nicotine without smoke, then you can avoid almost all of the diseases associated with tobacco use. And that's the basic underlying idea in tobacco harm reduction. And as it happens, there is rapid product development in that area. We have the emergence of e-cigarettes. We have heated tobacco products where the tobacco is heated but not burned. We've always had smokeless tobacco, and we have a range of new novel nicotine tobacco products now, all of which provide nicotine without any smoke at all, and all have the prospect of greatly reducing the risk to the smoker. So let's get on to my second point. How much less harmful than smoking are products like e-cigarettes? Well, we can't go forward 50 years in time and find out exactly what happened, so we don't have complete knowledge. But neither do we know nothing. We know about the vapor that comes out of e-cigarettes and what's in it and how toxic it is, and we know what comes out of cigarette smoke and how toxic that is. So we can make some comparisons. And it turns out that most of the things that cause harm in cigarettes are simply not present in e-cigarette aerosol or vapor, or they're present at levels that are many, many times lower. From that, looking at those sort of measurements, the Royal College of Physicians based in London conducted an assessment of the relative risks of e-cigarettes and smoking and concluded that they were unlikely to exceed 5% of the risks of smoking and maybe substantially lower than that figure. And that is a reasonable guideline for these products, a reasonable and conservative guideline taken by Britain's most eminent medical society. So let's now go on to my third point. And this is the idea that products like e-cigarettes will cause changes in the way people smoke that actually cause more harm than good. So this is the idea that things like e-cigarettes will be a gateway to smoking. People who would never have smoked will take up e-cigarettes and then begin to smoke as a result. That it will prevent people quitting smoking who would otherwise have quit, or that it will make smoking fashionable again somehow. Now these ideas, these theories are very odd in reality. Most people you would expect to use a much safer product to reduce their risks to health rather than to increase them. So they kind of run against common sense. But once again, the Royal College of Physicians examined the evidence in this area and found that there was nothing to support these theories, nothing at all. They argued that, in fact, people were, as you would expect, using e-cigarettes, similar products, to reduce their smoking, to look after their health, and to help them quit smoking completely. And therefore that they should be thought of as beneficial, not harmful. Okay, now let's go on to the fourth area that I want to discuss, which is the potential for policymakers to cause harm to health by the way they approach products like e-cigarettes or other low-risk products. The problem is, if you might think as a policymaker that you're being tough on e-cigarettes, you might think, oh, well, I can raise the tax on it, I can ban them in public places, I can get rid of flavors so they become less attractive, and I can set very tough product standards that they will find hard to meet, give them huge paperwork burdens. And you might think you are being tough by doing that. But in fact, what you may be doing is making it harder for people to switch from harmful products like cigarettes to less harmful products like e-cigarettes. And in doing so, that you may be causing more harm. Once again, the Royal College of Physicians cautions on this and points out that even if you have good intentions to be precautionary, the danger is that if you make the products more expensive, less attractive, less accessible, less capable of replacing cigarettes pharmacologically, then the danger is you increase smoking and do more harm to health. And they've made a very clear statement there that policymakers should be very wary of unintended consequences. And so far, around the world, we've seen very few pay real heed to that. And the danger is that policymakers in the European Union, in the United States, advisors at WHO are causing more harm than good with the policy proposals that they have. So let me get on to the fifth and final part of this short presentation, and that is the question of what regulation would be appropriate. Well, the starting point is that one answer to that might be do nothing, literally do nothing. There isn't really a problem. Consumers like the products. Nobody seems to be harmed. They seem to be helping people quit smoking, cut down on smoking. What then is the problem that regulators are supposed to address? And it's pretty hard to find it. But let's say governments are determined to regulate. What are the kind of things that they should think about? Let me give 5 suggestions. First, taxation. The taxation of these products should be zero or very small indeed, and much less than smoking. That will create a fiscal incentive for people to switch. Second, if you're going to apply standards, going to apply product regulation, then use standards to do that. Set some standards, harmful ingredients, contaminants, thermal, electrical, chemical and mechanical safety and testing methods. We're well advanced on that in the European Union and plenty to copy there. Thirdly, the policy on communication of risk. Regulators should be very careful to communicate risks accurately and concisely and help smokers and other consumers make informed choices. At the moment, they tend to be obscuring those relative risks rather than helping smokers understand the range of products and choices they have. And that is to communicate that the risks are many times lower. And fourthly, the policy on whether to allow vaping in public places. Regulators believe they have evidence that shows that secondhand cigarette smoke is a cause of cancer and heart disease in bystanders. And therefore, they've determined that for health and safety reasons, smoking should be banned in most public places. However, no such evidence exists for e-cigarette vapor or aerosol. The level of exposure is much, much lower, and many of the products that are thought to cause harm in secondhand cigarette smoke are simply not present in e-cigarette aerosol. Therefore, the right policy is to let owners and managers decide what is right for their own premises, taking account of their own clientele and the type of business that they run. And then finally, age-related restrictions, bans on sales to people under the age of 18, and restrictions on marketing that target young people. And that could involve restrictions on where adverts are placed, what the type of content is, what type of day they run, and so on. It would perhaps be similar to the advertising restrictions that are placed on other adult products like alcohol or gambling. So that's the gist of my presentation. In summary, I'm suggesting that authorities embrace the concept of tobacco harm reduction. Secondly, that they recognise that these products are very much less risky than smoking, maybe 2 orders of magnitude, 90+%. Thirdly, that they should not be distracted by claims of gateway effects. The opposite is far more likely to be true, that these products are gateways out of smoking. Fourthly, that they should be aware of the potential for unintended consequences arising from bad policy decisions. These can protect the cigarette trade from competition and cause more smoking. And then fifthly, there is a sensible, proportionate regulatory regime available to authorities who want to regulate these products in a responsible way. If they do that, I believe they will have a good public health strategy, and that this will contribute to a long-term end game for smoking and smoking-related disease. People will switch to these products in order to protect their health and look after their welfare, and we will have made a great deal of progress in tackling what otherwise could be 1 billion deaths from smoking in the 21st century. I'd like to thank you for your attention. Once again, I'm sorry I could not be there in person, but I hope you've enjoyed and found this short presentation interesting. Thank you very much, and goodbye.